Today we're going to be talking about what to do when you get a bad review. I almost started it out by saying it's inevitable, but that's not necessarily the case. I find a lot of practitioners, a lot of services that don't have any bad reviews. There could be a variety of reasons for that. I think there's a lot of people out there who really pride themselves in having 5-star reviews. I wish I could say that about my practice, but we have gotten bad reviews, and I can share about how we manage that. So if you do get a bad review, just know that these things do happen. You can provide stellar service. You can explain your services. You can explain when you're going to call people back. You can explain that you're private pay only. You can explain your process from the start to finish. But sometimes people write bad reviews. And there, are obviously laws like HIPAA that surrounds what you can and can't do. So for all of our reviews, whether they're good reviews, bad reviews, and I'm happy to say, obviously there's way more good reviews than bad reviews, but we acknowledge every review. We don't acknowledge anybody as a client. All we simply say is, thank you so much for this review, or, I'm so sorry to hear that was your experience. We pride ourselves on returning phone calls within 24 hours. Whatever the issue was, we'll address the issue at hand, but we don't acknowledge anybody as a client. So you have to decide whether you're going to respond to your reviews. Now, I'm going to tell you a little story about my mom. And she was looking for a service. I forget what the service was. It wasn't a therapist, but it was something. And she said, I looked at their reviews and the owner responded to all the reviews. And I really liked that. And that really spoke to me because that made me realize that people do want to hear what the owner has to say. Again, whether the reviews are good or bad. People want to see that the Google My Business page is active, that there are pictures, that the information is there. And so I think when you get a bad review, or if you get a bad review, just know that that's one piece of Yelp or Google My Business or wherever your reviews are at, Health Grades. Know that there are other components to that page that people are looking at, right? I read the reviews of the practitioners that I go to. And a lot of the times for healthcare across the board, it's usually not complaints about the therapist. It's usually complaints about the front staff. And so I know that if a practitioner comes highly recommended and the reviews aren't great, but it's the staff, that's something like, hey, I could probably tolerate. Like, I'm a pretty pleasant person. Like, I'm not going to fight with the admin, front staff. Or, if somebody doesn't return my call right away, I understand that they're very busy. I understand what it looks like to run a practice. So, I might be able to be patient around that, right? So I think a lot of people are beginning to read the reviews. They're looking for themes. Is there a theme? The therapist was always late. The therapist was always late. The therapist was always late. If you have 3 or 4 reviews that say, the therapist was always late, people are probably going to take that into consideration. But if there are things like, we got a bad review because over the weekend we don't answer the phones. We were not clear about that. Wasn't on our voicemail. It wasn't like on our website necessarily. The hours were there. It showed that we were open on Saturdays. So I think some people thought maybe somebody could answer the phones on Saturdays. Somebody called, we got a bad review. And then we realized that was, our responsibility in that bad review was that we needed to be way more upfront about when we answer calls, because it looks like we're open a lot. We are open, but nobody's answering the calls at 8:00 on a Wednesday. So we decided to put almost everywhere. We return phone calls within 24 hours, Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. Business hours. So if you call on Friday at 5:10, it's not going to be, 24 hours. It's going to be Monday morning. And since then, we've gotten really good feedback about that. We have been able to really accommodate people, explain when we're open. We put that on our voicemail. We really are transparent about that. So in some ways, even though that review was a negative, we weren't happy to get it, it really became an opportunity for our business to really look at some of our practices. So I'm going to give you another tip on how to handle a negative review, but first let's thank our sponsor, TherapyNotes. Always happy to write them a good review. If you're looking for an electronic health record that's really full service, one that can help you run your practice, whether that's in person, virtual, cash pay, private pay, insurance-based, whether you take credit cards or you don't, this is really a great electronic health record for you. One of the things I was just talking to another group practice owner about over the weekend is how great their reporting is. I really find the reporting to be so great. It's so easy to follow. It's so easy for me to gather data. So if you're looking for an electronic health record that's really full service, I want you to check out TherapyNotes. Besides addressing the review on the front end, you have to address the review on the back end. Just like I gave the example, like are there holes in your systems? Are there things that you need to address? Is there something for you to look at here? We don't hunt people down and ask them to remove reviews necessarily. We may follow up with people if there's a reason, like we weren't aware of something. Somebody maybe wrote a review and was like, my therapist did XYZ and we weren't aware. We may follow up like as the admin staff and the owner, follow up. Depends on the situation, depends on the circumstances, but I am really protective about our reviews. I love to get good reviews, but I understand that when we take reviews that we're opening ourselves up for the good and the bad. And when you have multiple practitioners and multiple admin staff that reviews, you're definitely opening yourself up. And I just like to make sure that our systems are in place so we get positive reviews. Well, that's it. I'll see you soon, everybody. Bye.